Well, I'd never been to the Highlands before.
It's very romantic. You romantic?
Hello, welcome to Premier Scene. I'm Claire Bueno. Well, we're on the right tracks this evening as we attend the UK premiere of The Railwayman. Now, am I correct in saying that you served in the war and you were actually at the railway?
Yes, I was in the railway. I went back with my son about 6 years ago, or 7 years ago, and we stayed initially in Singapore, but then flew up actually to Bangkok. Is what we did. And so Bangkok wasn't on the railway, of course, at all. It was Kanchanaburi.
Yes, I've been there. Yeah.
Have you been there?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Have you seen the river? The
Kwai. Yeah.
The Kwai.
Yeah.
Oh, well, good.
And what was that like for you, having been there during the war and then having to revisit?
Well, as I've said before, I'm an optimist. I always look on the bright side of things. It doesn't worry me, except that there was, on the train, there was one Japanese woman. She was writing a book. And my son, who was with me on the journey, Robert said to her, leave my father alone, because it's too upsetting for him to talk about the railway line, which was true.
Is it? I mean, this film, as you'll see, the whole experience haunted Eric Lomax. May I be presumptuous enough to ask if that was not whether it affected you in the same way, or?
When I came home, we landed at Liverpool, and I got that we were one night in a camp at Liverpool, and then I got the train back home, from Liverpool to King's Cross, I think it was, and and then they said, well, that's it. Bye-bye. There was no business about any thoughts of reconciliation or rehabilitation or nothing like that at all.
He's a wonderful man. I've seen it. But he's a mess.
Is the film about forgiveness for you?
Forgiveness is something, I don't think one should take an easy position on forgiveness. I think it's when something as devastating as this has been done to you, I think it's something that's very hard earned, and I think hopefully that's has been honestly represented.
Watching the film, Eric was a gentleman, but he was also a very brave man. Is that how you felt?
I think Eric is growing up, he grew up in a very isolated, a very isolated childhood, and it was a very naive and very vulnerable person. This is someone whose life kind of revolved around train spotting. He's a railway enthusiast. This isn't your typical hero. This isn't the Arnold Schwarzenegger of action movies. This is a real life vulnerable person who was thrown into the worst circumstances imaginable and had things done to him so horrific that we couldn't even put them in a film. A lot of it. We only show a very small section of what Eric actually went through, and I think because of that, it's incredibly moving. And I kind of, I get quite emotional talking about it. But yeah.
Well, watching the performances between yourself and Colin as well, your mannerisms are so alike, and I just wondered how much you work together.
My Colin Firth impression, yes, no, quite. No, it's. God, he's going to hate me for that, isn't he? Jeez. No, it's. We spent a lot of time talking about the voice. Colin was incredibly generous and let me rehearse with him in his living room and stuff, and which he didn't have to do, and that was what I said, it's an acting masterclass I couldn't have dreamed of a few years back. So I don't know, it's you know, there was definitely some mannerisms that I wanted to get in there, that I wanted purely to smooth over the transition back and forth from Colin to myself. And yeah, sure you do. You do study the other actor you're working with a bit. I mean, he. Because I have blue eyes and he has brown eyes. There was a while where Colin was trying to have blue eyes. They put these contact lenses in, which made him look like a vampire. So in the end, I was going for his brown eyes. So I kind of, wanted to get a few mannerisms as well, and just to make sure it wasn't distracting, I guess. Yeah.
And with regards to Eric's book, it must have been such a great source of research. But was it incredibly moving as well for you to read?
I really struggle reading the book. I think, especially getting to getting to know Eric, having known Eric briefly, and knowing Patty as well, it's unimaginable. I think it's just so difficult for someone, especially someone of my generation, to even come close to relating to, and I think because of that, I found it, very moving, I suppose. Yeah.
I don't believe in this code of silence that you have.
War leaves a mark.
This is such an incredibly moving story. For you, it must have been an exciting story to be a part of.
It was. I mean, it's a very powerful story, and there wasn't a day when we lost sight of that. And just working with Eric and Patty and bringing their story to life was an amazing experience, because they're extraordinary lives, that an incredible story about survival and love, and the price it takes to love and support someone, and they're really powerful things to put in a film, and so it was a great experience to do that.
And you're talking about powerful. The performances that we see are extremely powerful, particularly Colin.
Yeah.
For you as a director, watching that live and in the moment, I just wondered how it must have affected you.
Well, it brings you closer to those events. It brings you closer to what those men possibly went through. We can never know because we weren't there, but to get a sense, it's a great honour to be given a window into what they went through and what they survived, but also not only what they went through at war, but what they went through when they came home, and also what their loved ones went through in trying to come to terms with a completely different person who came back from the war. And so, there's a great respect, and a growing respect, and a great sense that we just hope that we've honoured that story.
It's also, I mean, one of the themes for me in the film was about not forgetting what's happened, exactly. And I imagine that's what you wanted from that as well.
Very much so. It's about, we so rarely learn the lessons of the past, and so many elements in the film are still going on today. So it's not really a film about what happened in the past. It's about a film that happened in the past, that happened in the future, and it continues to happen in the present.
When we surrendered, the Jap said we weren't men. Real men would die of shame.
You have no honor.
I'm an interpreter and not torturer. That's an important point. When I was trying to come up with who he might be, Mr. Nagase did actually live. He is a real person. But I didn't get to meet him, I didn't really get to know who he really was. And he's written several books. I read them, but it's very different what he says and who he really is. So what I was trying to do was to sort of portray what it was like to be a soldier at that time in Thailand. So that's what I focused on mainly.
One of the lines in the film, one of your lines, better to die than live without honour, it's said frequently in the film actually. Is that the kind of foundation that you built your character on?
Not necessarily that's the foundation of it. I guess the foundation of it was to be caught in this chaos. And being very young and being caught in the situation, and you have to survive in the situation. So I think that's a foundation, yeah.
And did you take anything with you in particular from making this film?
Working on this film, I think this film does signify this sort of forward-thinking way of how to work together globally, and we all worked together really well, and I think it's because we were very open about what happened, and we were very open about the history of it. So I think that really helped. Yeah.
Now, for you as a young actor, this must have been such an exciting script to be a part of.
Yeah, it's great to do work that's important, you know. So it was a wonderful script, yeah.
We're talking about it being important. Obviously, the research as well is incredibly important. What depths did you have to do to get to
research? Well, yeah, I mean, there's endless research, you know, and the stuff that I found the most interesting were the drawings that the POWs were doing, the artwork, because I feel like you can explore a lot of human psyche in their art, you know, that they were making at the time. But you know, for me, I did a lot of looking at what it's like to be a leader, a military leader, because I think for Finlay is that's probably the most defining part of his character, is that he's meant to lead these men, but he's leading them in a time when he can't do his job properly, and I think that carries that weight with him all the way into his later life, and then obviously you know, what happens to him, you know.
Well, with regards to psyche, the scenes that you're playing out, we see, you know, there's torture happening. So how do you mentally get into the right place that you need to?
I think the thing is, it's, you know, it's actually happening. I mean, you know, people aren't being hurt. You know, they might be wearing a bodysuit or something like that, but you know, you're actually watching another guy whack another dude with a stick. And I mean, you know, and that's horrific to watch. And to know that that is a reality, to know that it's a truth. It's not so much as putting yourself in a mind state, it's just allowing yourself to feel the gravity of the situation.
He's alive. He's alive. And I know where he is. He won't have a clue you're coming.
This is what you're going to do, isn't it?
First of all, congratulations on writing such an incredibly moving screenplay. For you reading the book, how did that affect you, really?
The book was an amazing book, but much more so, we met Eric and we spent a lot of time. This film has taken a long time to get to the screen, over 10 years. And during that time, Eric and I and all of us became really close friends, and it was such a joy and such a privilege to know Eric. And it's so sad that he's not here tonight, but he is here. So.
The film is taken, we see it in flashback. Presumably the book wasn't written like that, so how did you begin to adapt it?
I mean, the film is really about a kind of something that's right at the very end of the book. The film is really the love story of Eric and Patty. Eric's book is really about what happened to him in the war, but we were much more interested in what happened to him afterwards and in the power of love, the love story that sort of made him. He fell in love with Patty and realised that wasn't going to work unless he dealt with his demons, so that's the story.
And you've got such profound dialogue within the film. I'm still at war. No, it's true. That's what I felt when I watched the film. You know, Colin saying, you know, I'm still at war, and about the honour. There's, you know, how can you live without honour? And they really do sum up what the film's about, really.
Yeah. I mean, those scenes at the end, Colin worked on them a lot. You know, we kind of worked and talked through them a lot. So there's a lot of Colin in those scenes, and I think that's why it feels so raw, you know. And Colin spent a lot of time with Eric as well. So, you know, we all had that thing we want to do justice to Eric.
When I read the book, I don't know, I suppose I became a bit obsessed about making a film of it, you know, and that's why we persevered all these years. But it's such a moving story. What happened was, when I met Lomax himself, that was the clincher really for me. He was such a spiritual man, lovely man, you know, and but he had humour, he had a strength of character that ran through him all the time, and his wife, I mean, she was so modest, it was incredible, and she played her part down all the time, and it was quite obvious to me from the very beginning that she was the one that was responsible for him surviving. And what she contributed to him was phenomenal. And she's here today, and I think for her, it's an out-of-body experience to see someone like Nicole Kidman playing her. You know, it's quite wonderful, really.
I love him, and I want him back.
Will you stand by him, whatever he does?
I have to try.
I have suffered much. But I know you have suffered too. And you mean everything to me. Sometime the hating has to stop.